You're about to see another amazing example of human potential and conversation potential. This is one of the ones I'm going to tell people to go back and say, this is how you do it. This is an amazing conversation with Tim Redmond from Redmond Growth. And hey, let's just get to the good stuff because this is a fantastic one. What's up, crew? Welcome back. You're about to see a great conversation with Tim Redmond of Redmond Growth. Tim is doing amazing stuff with his team. We talk about what he's doing to empower people as a coach, his background to what brought him to this point, his business background, his personal background. And this is really gonna tug at the heartstrings, and rightly so. Because if you don't really come away with this inspired, I tell you, you gotta see this whole show. So huge thanks to Tim for a great conversation. We go into a lot of stuff. If you want to see this kind of stuff and much more, of course, if you don't mind, just hit the little like button there and hit subscribe. Helps make sure that you drop a comment as well. It makes sure that people get notified when this stuff comes up. Helps us to bump up in the YouTube algorithm. I'm really amazed by how much growth we're having on the YouTube side as well as the audio. So thank you all for watching and listening and doing all those things. You're fantastic. You're great people. Tim's a great person. We're all great people. Let's be great together. This is Tim Redmond of Redmond Growth on the DiscoPosse podcast.
This is Tim Redmond. I'm the CEO of Redmond Growth Consulting, and I'm so pleased to be with you today and introducing another episode of DiscoPosse podcast.
All right, there we go. That's what I always tell people. That's like when you see the on-air go light on. You're like, when I hear that phrase, I know we're ready to go. Tim, thank you so much. I'm already excited. We've spent a glorious 8 minutes together just getting prepped, and I'm already fired up. This is so cool. Thank you for joining. And
yeah, it's so great to be here, Eric.
Your background is incredibly interesting to me. What you're doing is incredibly important to me. And the way you do it, I find even in the moments I've taken in a lot of your content from some of your other speaking opportunities and stuff. So it's kind of a cheat. I feel like I know you a lot already because I've been taking in some of your speaking. And so it's an honor to share a microphone with you. Coincidentally, we both have the same microphone. So I know I'm among friends here, which is kind of cool.
This is so cool. Yeah.
So Tim, for folks that are brand new to you, if you don't mind, let's just give a quick intro and we'll talk about Redmond Growth and kind of what you're doing. And then we'll get to how you got there, which is actually, I think, an even more important part of the story.
Yeah, I was really kind of segue into what I'm doing. I was traveling around the world speaking and sharing lessons on leadership and growth mindsets and strategies to all kinds of groups. And they would come up to me afterwards and they said, "Hey, do you offer coaching?" I go, "Well, what's your question?" And sometimes I spent an hour with them, giving them coaching, not realizing that people actually built a business around coaching and they're getting paid big bucks to do it. So, I may be small, but I sure am slow. So it did take me a little bit to catch on to this. And so I shifted from the speaking circuit to really building a coaching program. And we help all kinds of businesses. I started out just coaching only. Now the model that I follow is we have a do it for you and a do it with you coaching mechanism here, Eric, because my clients, I tell them, do these 3 things, or these are the 7 things to keep in mind when you do a homepage on your website or whatever. Did you get that done? No, their hair's on fire and they're just trying to get through the day, just to survive. And so that's where we've got a do it for you implementation team where we show them the blueprint and you say, okay, give me 3 months and we'll implement this blueprint for you. And so we do it for all kinds of businesses, but mainly service-based companies, contractors, home builders, plumbers, electricians, virtually any kind of business, but those are who we aggressively go after in terms of our marketing. So
Well, and you can say in a way that you found that niche and that people that are into service and customer focus, that are super customer centric. We overuse this phrase in our industry of like customer centricity. Like you think that everybody would be customer
right,
centric, but when you're in the service business, it's not purely transactional. There's a much more deep impact on the reputational, connection to your previous customers that will get you new customers. And this is why
right,
in those scenarios, coaching and people skills, those like soft skills as we call it, are so much more important. And but there's a technical thing that gets you there. Like it is impressive to me, how we don't see it. We just think of somebody like they're a CEO, like they have a function. You're like, no, the CEO is the chief revenue officer. They're the chief everything
right.
officer, right?
Yes,
For they they need help. Just because they're the CEO and they're amazing at what they're doing doesn't mean that they're as good as they need to be or can be.
right.
And getting
And
that coaching and that leadership help and
yeah,
it's even mentors need mentors, which is an
right.
interesting thing too.
The best get better because they get coaches. Most people in life are not trained on how to build a business. Most people are trained in life. It's kind of a Michael Gerber off take with the E Myth. Most people are trained to be a technician. It may be transplanting human hearts. It may be, putting new ventilation up or fixing a pipe. Uh, so we come alongside, and none of us are as smart as all of us, and so we help them in their marketing. We help them in their sales process and their closing, and their scripts, and training their frontline staff, and productivity and accountability systems, and cash flow management. So we help them in all these areas because I've had 2,000 businesses I've worked with in the last 10 years where myself or one of my coaches, we've actually personally worked with them on a weekly basis to make the numbers, make the needles move. And so, yeah, we've already solved a lot of the problems you haven't even run into yet. That's the benefit of having somebody who's coached thousands of companies. So it's a lot of fun. I tell you, Eric, I was just talking to a plumber the other day, and which, by the way, some of those guys are a lot more wealthy than you would think. Well, yeah, all I
Absolutely.
see, think of a plumber and I think of their butt crack. That's all I think about. Well, there's more to a plumber than his butt crack. So this guy was making $3,000 to $5,000 a month. I was just talking to him the other day. He is now just using our systems, implementing our stuff. He is now making between $40,000 and $50,000 of profit every month, and he's able to go on vacations. And his business pays him while he's on vacation. He's
Yeah.
like, that's a whole new concept for some of these guys. So it's an absolute blast of what I get to do.
And this is really the thing of when somebody starts, especially, that sort of a thing, right? Or I'm good at a skill, so I'm going to turn the skill into a business. And that you're literally one to one on profitability. Like you can only profit as much as you can put into it and not take out. And you can only put as much into it as you are physically capable of doing. And that's great for a lot of folks, right? They can be contractors, they can be whatever, and then there's the many to one where you could say I can maybe do coaching, or I can do, consulting, or I can help a team of people. And so there's a bit more than just one to one. Maybe it's like 3 to 1 as far as sort of profitability based on
Yeah.
effort.
Right.
But those are still small ratio numbers. And, kind of the jump you're talking about there is empowering somebody to take what he's done for himself or she for herself and say, like, how do I scale this? model,
Right. Right.
stay within my level of growing and operating this business, but scale what's underneath it. And it's, if they're that good at doing that scaling, they'd be in the scaling business, right? Like, but they're
Yeah.
plumbers and
Right.
whatever.
Right.
So they're, let's help them scale what they're really good at, which is, it's hard to find people that can do that.
Well, let me talk to your audience here because you got some really smart people that may be almost as smart as you, Eric. And there's in the technical field, and so you look at the type of economies that I read the Harvard Business Reviews and Wall Street Journal and most books that have pictures in it too. So, but you know, you talk about the different economies that are coming on, the economy of sharing, the economy and the experience economy. We're really coming into a coaching economy. So right now, I'm a coaching company. I've got near 200 clients. I've got a whole team of coaches and support team, and we built this whole thing. We know what we're doing coaching, and yet right now I've got 4 companies coaching me in certain aspects I want to get better at. I mean, I take my own medicine, and so it's okay for you to be a coach in your area of expertise. And it's okay for you to get coached if you want to become better, whether it's scaling or just even, I'm getting coaching in very specific aspects of our business, of our processes in here. And so this is kind of like the age that we're living in right now. And so I kind of, Mr. Magoo kind of stumbled into it, but it really, I think we stumbled into something really big. And it's very defining to be conscientious of that.
And this is it's always interesting to me when I meet folks like yourself, and there's a really exciting humility in your approach to it. And because you even talk about, we use phrases like smart, like we definitely, we want to always pump up, folks that you're coaching and you're working with and you're talking to. And it's funny, you, even in the way you describe yourself, you already downplay a lot of what you bring to this world, other than your incredible coaching skills, but you're a technician as well. I mean, you came from doing some real deep hands-on work in finance and auditing, and you've got an interesting background. So
Yep.
Tim, here you are today, and
You've
people would
done
say,
your
I know,
homework, Eric.
I'll say, here's Tim Redmond. I know he's a coach, and somewhere out there, there's like, mean Tim the auditor. So how do you go
See,
from
yeah,
where you began to where you are?
right, right. No, that's a good question. I used to be a CPA. I mean, worked for what is now PricewaterhouseCoopers, and CPA stands for constant pain in the abdomen. In the abdomen, right? We're live here, so you don't have to do any editing there. Yeah. So I remember being in advanced accounting. All right, the world's most boring class. Okay, I'm actually paying money for this, and I had senioritis. It was my last semester taking advanced accounting, and I remember writing down, I paid attention a little bit. I think I got an A in the class, but I remember writing down all these types of businesses I wanted to start. I had like pages of this. And one of them was, if I didn't become a lawyer, yeah, I was going to be a consultant, because there's so many of these businesses I like that, man, I want to dive myself into as many as I can. And so that's why we're expanding our coaching now. I'm looking at businesses to buy, just like I want to participate in some of that upswing. But it's been so interesting. It's always been a desire of mine to coach or consult. I don't know why or how that got into me. I'm one of 11 kids, and maybe I grew up having to coach, as we go along, just for survival sake. But yeah, it's been an interesting process to go CPA, to building a software company, to selling it to a Fortune 500 company, to traveling around the world speaking, to going into coaching. And it wasn't easy initially. It was a lot of hard work, and really had to rediscover, reinvent different aspects that I thought I had down. But we're I'm absolutely loving it. I feel the smile of God on me as much doing this as anything I've ever done. So things are
Well, I
good.
think that's you remind me. I tried to explain this to a friend of mine the other day because I said I've got a fairly diverse background in what I how I got here. You know, wherever here is. You know,
Yeah.
I was a landscaper, and then I was a shoe repairman. I was literally a cobbler. Then I worked in clothing retail, and then worked for an explosives company, and then like so I've got this really strange resume. The only thing I've never done was food service because the idea that I could do something wrong and someone could die from it really kind of scared me out of that. So I never got into the food thing, but I did a lot of other things, and I always I had this interesting mindset. Whenever I learned anything, or I watched how somebody did something, the way that I approach it is, what if I had to become so good at this that I needed to support my entire future and family off it if I ran it
Wow.
as a business? So
Yep.
whatever I pick up, I immediately think like how what's not sh- and I say shortcut, which is actually not, I don't think of shortcut. What is the way that I can get so good at this that it looks like there was a shortcut used?
Right.
And when I hear
That's
your
really
and I watched your path from like looking through your history and career, and you've got this incredibly diverse background and this the humility you bring to it. Like I said, it's so rare because and that's what makes you a fantastic coach is because I'll say it's you're never above or below it. Right? It you definitely seem to me like if you're over at a friend's house and they've got a $5 million house and he's holding a shovel in his hand, you'd reach into his garage and you'd grab another shovel. But at the
why
same
not?
time, you would do something else, right? Like so there's something you can tell when people genuinely are willing to do what it takes to get to what's next. And that's
Right. Right.
what's needed. God, we need
Yeah.
more of you. We need more Tims. We need more Tim Redmonds in this world.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I love getting to work with people and to be able to see them apply themselves to a process that rewards them abundantly. There's a lot of frustration in the world, Eric, because uh, there are those of us that are working our butt off and we're not getting the commensurate reward. And so there's a lot of frustration and anger. And so I like to run into the fire, not run out of the fire, run into the fire and say, okay, let's sort this, this, let's resort this thing and then let's tap into this internal wiring you've got to really live a better game where you can produce things that people love. You know, I wrote a whole book here, and this is not a big advertisement for this, but it's Power to Create. And in this book, I redefine this scary term called wealth that people are like, you know, who wants more money? I do. Well, how many of you have seen people messed up by money, ruined by money? Oh, I have. Well, why do you want more of what ruins other?
That's right.
There's this cognitive dissonance. Yeah, so I redefine wealth as creating value to serve other people. And how pure is that? Now there's motives and there's honesty and dishonesty, but I have spoken to a group of people outside of Accra, Ghana, and places that only a Jeep can get to, and some of the villages in the Philippines. And I've been in Zurich and London. I've done all kinds of different environments, and this to ignite people to create wealth. And I actually redefine that as the core of people's purpose. That that sets me on fire. That gets me up early in the morning. So much. I wrote a 25-year plan for my business career last year when I was 60. I'm 61 now, and so it's I don't know if this is beneficial for the folks watching this here, but I just want to say we're waiting for the wiring that you have, and I hope it wakes up and is fully unleashed. So, for the good of the
That's
others.
and that is the thing, this idea of like what excites you. Like because there's a lot of things we look to inspire ourselves. And whether you go on Instagram every morning and you check when Jocko Willink woke up because he takes a picture of his watch, right? And like that's sort of that thing of like,
Yes.
that I always look at that and I'm like, Jocko, you can just go back to bed for a couple hours. It's okay, or
I
David
just
Goggins.
heard I just heard him for the first time 2 weeks ago. The
Nice.
guy is like, he talks to people and he's pissed off.
Yeah,
Like, stop. Don't even look my way, Jocko. Okay.
I know.
Well, go ahead.
This
I'm
is
so, yeah.
freedom. He's
Yeah.
definitely got a style that's interesting, and like David Goggins and these guys. Every time I look, and it's like you'll see David Goggins. He's like, it's got an incredible personal story, and he's an inspiring human for sure. But he'll be taking a selfie, and he's like looking down the street. He says, "You see that? There's no one here. It's because it's 4 o'clock in the morning, but I'm going for a run. Where are you?"
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
I'm
There
like,
you go.
David, put your shirt
Yeah.
back on. You don't need to do that, dude. It's okay. Like, so there's kind of like this. I'm a type A minus personality. I'm like, I like to like do things, but I don't feel the need to like break the mold, be the leader, whatever. I enjoy innovating on an existing idea mostly through like getting a person to see more in themselves than
Right.
they could realize
Right.
they had.
You're a gift, Eric. Just a short time. I mean, I hope I've met a new friend here.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I'll be like you fed a stray dog. I'm gonna keep coming back. Well, why do you keep coming? So
No, that's
watch out.
awesome. So like Tim, there's a lot of interesting things that I often think that connect people together. And it's when you can highlight that for them. It's like even as like skill sets. So like accountants meet accountants. Ray, we're both in accounting. We should automatically be friends, right? Maybe not necessarily. When it's usually
Right.
it's the and that connects people. And I said, so I'm a technology marketer and a guitarist, and
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
also, I cycle and I do things, and those are quite often more important in personal connections and ultimately like mentoring engagements. So what you find is like other things. So I look, and even in researching about your life, Tim, and what do? I find videos of you hundreds of yards out sending bullseye bullets in a
Oh
field.
my.
You are you got a diverse set of personal,
Yes, you saw my long
joys and
range goal.
skills.
That was actually a client, and I wanted to test what he had out. So we were popping targets 1,000 yards out. It was
Incredible.
just phenomenal. But go ahead. You did do your research. That's impressive.
But
I hope it wasn't too depressing though.
oh, it's fantastic. No, no, and this is, like I said, when I see the diversity of background and acceptance of how good that is, right, to yourself. Because quite often people think like I'm going nowhere because I've come from all these different places. It's very easy for people to get lost in not understanding that being pretty good at a bunch of things is actually fantastic.
Right.
And they
Right.
often get stuck thinking I'm not good at any one thing. I'm like, no, but you're really good. You're good at a bunch of things. Most people
Right.
are not even
Right.
I'm able to unlock that.
Yeah.
So when you see people, Tim, who are, seeming successful to by any measure of a lot of people's, metric, how do you how do you begin to help them help towards what their next goal is?
Yeah, that's you're gonna uncork some. You're like a surgeon that dives right into deep into the heart. So I actually pray a little prayer, and it's Lord, show me your glory. So that's my own personal religious perspective. I'm not trying to push that down anybody's throat, but that unique ability to create wealth, that is the thing that really makes a difference. And if I can see a glimpse of that, and then I can just, even if I notice what I notice, and I mention that to the person, sometimes that's the confirmation they need to keep going.
I'll say it's an interesting thing because people often get stuck on it's spirituality. Religion is a way in which we witness spirituality, but there
Right.
is a beauty in
That's
that, right?
deep.
That
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
spirituality in itself, whatever the thing that gives you that inspiration is what's needed, and it's can be what you need to do is you need to find it in yourself, and I think that's what why I always look, and watch people they're in a coaching program. The biggest thing that whenever I'm mentoring somebody, I find it's like even therapy, the first thing you're doing is trying to convince that person that you're actually finding you don't need them. It's a bizarre thing because you don't want to go
That's
and be
insightful.
you don't want to be broken. So the first kind of like bunch of hours is often spent of them like talking about how great things really are. And then you listen to all that and you actually hear the signal underneath the noise of it. And then you can say, okay, you really seem to be focused on this and you seem to sort of shy focus away from this. What I'm hearing you actually say is this. And then
Right.
they're like, oh, and like now
Boom.
you
Boom.
get to get actually get
Light
that's when
bulb
you
on.
actually get
Right.
started.
Yeah. It's really good. Yeah. I find that coaching people is, is like a teacher's a student twice. I prepare for it, and then during the exchange, it's not just a monologue, it's an exchange. And I get paid for doing what I love to do, and I get huge benefit and insight by diving into the thinking processes of somebody else. I'm mentoring a young man, he's 25, and the world is his oyster. I mean, just he's ready to take on the world. And I think he's got enough humility mixed with that confidence. And so I met with him at 10 o'clock from 10 to 11 session here. I still do some coaching. And I just, I just, when I walk away, when I see him think and hear him think, I'm like, wow, that's moving some gears on the inside of me. So I'm always the better man for it. It's a great exchange.
It's isn't it it's almost that's why I love people that always say like, should we, charge money to like, like charge money to guests to come on the podcast? I'm like, I suppose I could. And there's a lot of people that do that, but I'm like, why? I'm the one who's I should be paying them. Like I come away smarter every bloody time. That's one thing I adore about this. But and that really I think is a great thing I want to dig in on, Tim. Staying close to the reality of what you do while also scaling as a business. How do you how do you keep that mix where you never get too far from the real activity that like the purpose of Redmond growth, but also stay enough to actually scale it and really run it as an organization?
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with I require myself and my COO to maintain a set of clients that we work on. Now we have a designated coach model where a client has one coach they go to, but we also have a group element there where they get introduced to other coaches. They have access to these 20-minute laser coaching sessions with anybody. I mean, I've got any of these clients can get a hold of me. And so we stay actively coaching. And that's both individually. So again, I maintain maybe about 8 to 10 clients, and it's maybe a third of what I used to do. And but I also dive into the group coaching calls, and sometimes those can be pretty feisty because we're talking about people's business. They're talking
Yeah.
about putting bread on the table. It's, do I expand now? And what do I do when this employee quits and now he's my competitor? He's learned all the tricks I've showed him. And there's all kinds of really interesting things that, even money management's primarily emotional management, it's
Yeah.
state management. So, where do you go with there? There's all kinds of things that we're diving into with that. So there's not a sacred cow we can't talk about. If we can't talk about a certain thing, then we really don't want to invite improvement and growth into that area. So that's why I hire coaches to speak to me. I want to make sure my blind spots are covered. And, I continue to grow. Just love growth.
Let's talk about the difference and the importance of truth and motivation. Sometimes we get somebody that comes to us and they need a boost, and truth is harsh sometimes. So you have to take care in how you meter it out, but it's
Right.
also critically important in my mind that you don't hold it back. You're obviously much more out there, especially when you're talking about someone's business and they're thinking about affecting the lives of many others.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There are points we have to say like, "Hey, this is I got some hard truth for you, but this is what you have to do."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you do both? And this is it's not always easy. And I've had clients quit me when we've done the reality therapy session. Now, that was more me and not them. Why? Because they're buying a service from me, and I got to package this in a way they can handle it. I can easily say, "Well, they just couldn't handle it," and I'm justified, and I stay stupid. That's not helping anybody. So, uh, I think we need to move towards one of my great mentors in philosophy on this, and that's Mary Poppins. And a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. As a matter of fact, I want you to sing that now, Eric. No, you can probably sing it. So, we got to make sure that when we deal with the realities of what's going on, and for them to embrace, a business is a mirror, a relationship is a mirror. Uh, attempts at doing things as a mirror, and it shows right back at us. And sometimes we don't want to pay attention to what we see in that mirror. And so it is very important to uh, deal. The spoonful of sugar may be humor. It may be just self degradation. I'm not against myself, but humility comes from the word humus, and which is mean dirt, and it just reminds us. Humility is a reminder that we're dirt bags. We're made of dirt, made of chemicals, and so I'm not above or below anybody. But if I can get you laughing about it, or if I can get you saying, you know what, you want to talk about something that just is off the stupid meter. I won the trophy that year. It's being honest with your own mistakes. And if you're talking down and you're not vulnerable to somebody you're wanting to bring life into and bring a reality and helping them embrace what's there, if you can't own that, or you can't get us all laughing, then you don't deserve to dive into that part of his heart. It's like we have some dentists that are just, they stick the needle and my daughter's finishing her first year in dental school. And then we have some dentists that you hardly even know they were in there. And
Yeah.
so it does take a little bit of tact and skill. um and to the person receiving it, you know uh hey, you're not as ugly as what you're afraid of being revealed. Just deal with it, own it, embrace it. And because we need you to grow, we need you to work through what you're working through, to help me with what I'm working through. And the person delivering it is just like, how you do it is as important as what you say, and don't justify yourself for being clumsy in how you say it because you're so justified in what you're saying. that's just a lack of skill. That's just not developing yourself so that somebody else can receive it better. Don't you think?
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. And w- now the fun part about we often have this thing we call it's the known knowns, right? It's like when somebody gets to you, they're ready, right? They've done something, they've achieved some sort of mental milestone that says I've got a limit and I need to get past this limit and I need help. And Tim Redmond's the person that's going to get me
Right,
there.
right, right.
When you walk into a room of people that don't know that you're Tim Redmond or that don't know that they need help, what is the way that we can help someone know that they've got a surpassable limit if they don't see it yet themselves?
Yeah, well, if their obstacle that they refuse to embrace is directly affecting your lifestyle, then it is your matter. Most things that we try to rescue and save really aren't any of our damn business, and so don't try to save people from stuff they're not. It's like having an answer to questions that nobody's asking you. So it's like find your tribe, find people that want you, need you, but if they're not open, it's like the saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But if you're the teacher and you're wanting to appear, and just the stupid student just can't see the brilliance
Yeah.
of who you are, it's arrogance. And the prideful, the arrogant people, they stumble and fall because they don't see clearly. They're delusional. It's so, it's a, the people business, we're so tough and yet we're so fragile. And so, uh, be an answer to somebody who's asking you the question, but you can know something and not have to say it. My COO is one of my sons, and very, very bright, smarter than me. And so I'm like, like, let's take some CBD toilet paper, calm your butt down. That's what CBD stands for, calm your butt down. So just know something, but don't have to say it. It's kind of I don't know if you're looking for that response, but it's probably a little bit different than maybe
No, it's
what you
good.
expected.
It's insightful. Yeah. And I think of the interesting thing, and I've given that I've done my own work in like keynotes and public speaking, people would
Yeah.
often ask and they'd say, like, how do you get good at speaking? It scares the crap out of me every time. And that's kind of exciting that way.
Me
And
too.
it was me a thing I actually had to get past it. Like when I was a kid, I had a real negative situation. And it was like I told myself to I'm
Wow.
gonna get through that. Right. And so the when I go and I speak to larger audiences, even if it's just a group of people, even if it's just 10 people sitting in a circle, at
Right.
a group
Right.
dinner table, what I've learned to be able to do is that I'm spurring the conversation so that I can listen. And people often
Wow.
they remember me thinking like I'm the one that's like talking, but the funny thing is I'm like just triggering them getting rolling. And it's because they
Excellent.
individually once they get out there and they're free to share, it's so much more enjoyable. And then I ultimately learn from everything. And I so I when I do people coaching for public speaking, I call it teaching people how to listen to 500 people at a time,
Wow.
because
That's
you're up there
that's
and
profound.
you're
That's really good.
basically, if you go up there and talk, you'll be 1 hour older, and so will all those people in the room, and then that's it. They'll be looking at their phone, they're looking at their watch. But if you go up there and listen and let them guide you through your presentation, it's a big thing. And in coaching,
Wow.
same thing. I imagine that you're that here already, like in even in the way we talk. It's like you almost don't want to talk because you cue me all the time. It's fantastic because it's just such a sign that you want to involve people
Yeah.
in a conversation, not just listening to you, which is some people that just like to talk.
Yeah, but I got Eric Wright on the connection here, so I wanna drain your brain, man, share the wealth. So, yeah, for sure. I mean, this is, it doesn't take a lot. It's not humility, it's reality, It's like, I already know what I know, I don't know what you know, So
When you when did it start for you? Because this isn't something that showed up when you were 35, Tim. I can imagine that you've got 11 kids in your family. It's,
yeah.
so you probably had some early traits. When did you know that this is something that you were going to be fantastic at?
Well, um, yeah, it's another one of those shoot the arrow in the deepest part of my heart, and I almost get emotional. Just stop that, Eric. So, um, for me, I was born with a lot of complications, double cleft palate. Didn't expect me to live through the day, through the week. My parents ran me to get baptized, and somebody that was not what he said he was, announced a curse over me and said, "This boy will never be a public speaker." And so I lived under that curse, and I lived under the being super shy. And then I was in in an accident when I was 15. My brother was there, and he was killed, and I was not expected to live. And so, and in that, with the brain injury I had to learn to read and write all over again. They didn't expect me to come out of it or it was going to be a vegetable, but it's just, I've lived a life of defying the odds and God's grace, lucky, whatever you say, persistence. Um, and so when did I discover this? It's just, you know, I'm either going into an adversity or coming out of an adversity, or I'm in the middle of an adversity. And so it's not that something's wrong with me. I may have put myself in there, but life is a process of overcoming adversity. And so I've learned that. And I want to, I see other people living under what Adler says is just living under the power of their inferiority complex rather than overcoming it. And so that, I just want to help other people discover their greatness. And so it really hit me when I was 16. I was coming out of that, learning to read and write again. And then just as I came more to myself, I just said, you know what, I've got something to share, and I'm not sure. I was so shy and so introverted. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but just stepping through a lot of uh, doing things afraid most of my life. So that's part of it.
I'd say that it doesn't seem like you found it. I think it found you.
Well, okay, now you're stop doing those statements. You're gonna get me crying right on the line here. I'm supposed to be a he-man here. So
No,
you are
that
you are amazing. Stop that, Eric.
I think the adversity university. This is
Wow.
the life lessons that I wish there was a way that we could expose everybody to enough adversity to create that immune response to get through it. And I think that's what
Yeah,
you tend to find people that are successful. It's never because it's been a string of successes. It's because there's been a string of surpassable defeats
right,
and
right.
like dealing with adversity and embracing it. Look, I in my own very recent weeks, even, like kind of just suddenly broadly accepting that stuff that I'm not 49 years old. I realized I'm like, there's shit that I should not be doing every day. Like, cause I'm just not good at this. I'm done with it. And instead I used to develop anxiety over not being able to do it. And I would try and I would try. And like, at some point you're just like, I'm banging my head against this wall. And I finally, accepted that I'm just going to get help for this. And I'm going to
Right.
do something else that I'm really good at that
Yeah.
will allow me to fund getting that help.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's really, really, really good. Yeah, I mean it's I like to work with people that are hungry, and I don't like to work with somebody that's not hungry. Uh, you got to pick yourself up. You can't just carry people,
Right.
and you actually train them in poverty mindsets. If you pick them up and you're the rescuer, they come in and they work with you. So yeah, it's been really good, Eric. You're probably one of the most unusual podcasters I've met, and I'm experiencing you live for the first time. So I I hope your tribe is growing and you're discovered even more. So
Well, thank you,
it's
Tim.
really been cool. Yeah,
It definitely is. It's been exciting because, like you said, when you go and you get to like learn from all these people, I think
yeah,
of, and so part of why I like the long form too, and I think I sort of mentioned as we before we got recording, I said I used to just do it as like people told me. They're like, whatever you do, don't go longer than like 20 minutes, 30 minutes max, because people don't have an attention for
yeah.
stuff.
Right, right.
And I went back to just like first principles thinking of like, why is it that people say that you can't pay attention for this long? And so, well, because you're listening to the same crappy first 20 minutes over and over again.
Yes.
And what I realized was when people even would approach me and say, like, how are we going to start this conversation? Like, what are the questions you're going to ask? And I'll tell you what the first question is going to be. And the second question will be based on the answer of the first one. Like that's all I can tell you. I can tell you
Yeah,
thematically where we're going to go. But as I've continued to be able to do this, being able to meet people and hear stories like this, and like there's things that you hear in the way they say it. And that's why I love the video side of it too, has been so fantastic because people are like,
right,
you can see. That's why even
right.
before we did audio, I always recorded with video. And I remember talking with actually somebody, it's a good friend of mine, and I was this one never actually got published, but I should have, because we had, there was a really long, I was testing something out, and I said like founders mentality, right? What I'm going to talk to people, and it was like 3 hours we talked,
Wow.
and you're opening your soul up. Like after half an hour, you run out of talking points. That's kind of like where
Right,
most people like hit the wall. And
right,
I remembered
right.
asking him, so I said, like, what's the thing that's the most difficult thing that you've had to face, as an owner, as a leader? And I could see his face like sort of like wrinkle up a bit. And he was walking, he was just like pacing as he was talking with me on Zoom. And it's just like this long, it's like 20 seconds. And I didn't say anything. It's like he's thinking. And he says, I I don't know that we're gonna be here in a month. I'm when I'm done this call, I'm going to be talking to investors, and I'm looking for what are the emergency options we've got, because I don't know that we've got enough runway to keep going.
Yeah.
And it
Wow.
was like that. I was sitting there like, oh God, oh my, like that wasn't the answer I was expecting, and it was like to
Yeah.
see the ability for somebody to feel comfortable
Right,
share
right.
that moment. And and I can tell you with confidence that month came and went. So did customers, so did revenue, and incredible growth has happened
Boom.
for him, and
Amazing.
well
The fire.
deserved.
Yeah.
But it's like
Good.
that's the stuff that I love about doing this is like to hear your story, Tim. It's like I was getting ready to tear up, just hearing what you've been through and your ability to come out the other side of that and see other people's lives as being what you need to affect and not be focused on yourself. It's a gift that you've got that I'm proud that you're sharing it with the world.
Yeah. Well, good. It's been really good to be here.
So
Eric,
I got to
it's
ask a
been
question about the writing, because I know that's one thing that's an interesting challenge of like
right,
having a
right.
practice and being good at it in practice. How did you translate that into like creating the book?
Well, when I was traveling around, I had a nonprofit. I did a lot of faith-based churches, but also governments, trained a bunch of pastors with John Maxwell, who's this leadership guy down in Bogota, about 600 pastors down in Bogota, and do these business conferences. And so what I would teach on so much that on this particular book, I actually did a curriculum, a DVD curriculum, Power to Create, and just 8 lessons for how to incorporate, understand wealth, and how to incorporate it into your life practically, regardless of the economic position. So, and I've written 4 books, and they've come out of just lessons that I've practiced a lot. I've taught a lot. So it's just a matter of writing it down. It's a very, very arduous process for me because I like every word. I layer the sentences with a lot of meaning. And so it's hard work, but it's really enjoyable to go through it. On this book, I hated myself and hated everybody and hated the process until my 4th huge revision, and then I finally said, "Okay, boom!" It clicked, but it
Yeah.
didn't click until then, and it's just the grind to get through it. Is like I used to, in high school, I used to wrestle, and so it's like, well, how strong are you in the 3rd period? And it's just grinding it through, and that's kind of what you have to do. And same with the coaching. And I don't know whether did my folks contact you about offering some kind of a deal to the folks that
We did
are
not.
on there?
I feel but holy moly, Tim, if I could share your knowledge,
Yeah,
your book, anything with my audience,
yeah,
I would absolutely
yeah.
love to
If
do that.
anybody wants a signed copy of that, boom, just email me, Tim at Redmond Growth. And
All right, I'm
but if
writing
they
this down.
want,
I'm writing this down. This is fantastic. You
yeah,
are God, you're such a good human.
and then what we do in our coaching is we have what we call a growth plan where we've already identified if they're a good fit or not. And then we do a growth plan where we analyze the business strengths and weaknesses. We see your goals, your desire. We'll actually build in our first coaching meeting, which you can get to that level free. We actually build a business model for you that shows you your capacity, which is just eye opening for people. But then what we do in the growth plan is after we identify where you want to go and what are your obstacles and the strengths, then we will actually build a coaching pathway and we'll give you 8 to 10, sometimes even more concrete actions for you to take. It's very unveiling, it's very unselfish, it's hugely beneficial. Most companies that go through it, they can add another $100,000 of profit to the business in the next 12 months. So that's why we normally charge $2,500 for this process. It's so well worth it. But if they identify themselves as I love Eric Wright, or they give you a 5-star review, and they identify it and they email me, Tim at Redmond Growth, or go to our website, but they have to just identify themselves as Eric Wright, then we'll waive that $2,500 fee and we'll give you the whole
Wow.
impact of that growth plan and all the insight. There's no obligation to work with us. We may not even want to work with you after we're done with it. We may not see that it's a fit, but it's always been a very worthwhile time for a business owner. So
That's
if you'd like
fantastic.
to
Thank
do
you
that,
very much.
yeah,
Well, and that's a great thing I'd love to say is before we close out here, Tim, the best thing you can do as a business owner is choose the customers you shouldn't work with. And it's funny that it's very easy for people to get wrapped up in the I've got to take everybody, right? But
right,
who is your sort of ideal, what I shouldn't say. That's a I don't want to niche you into a thing. So who are people that you've been successful working with, and maybe somewhere, an example or two of somebody who wasn't quite a right, may not be a right fit.
yeah.
I mean, maybe
So
personalized, and maybe you shouldn't.
right, no, um, who doesn't work with us well are underfunded startups because we're an implementation coaching system. So we're going to sprint for 90 days to get things in motion. And if you want to continue with us after that, most people do. Our best clients have us as a partner for life. We're in the room with them all the time. So the folks that don't really have a business going yet, or they're a startup and they really don't have funding for that, I don't mind getting on the phone and telling them I'm not going to give them a growth plan. It's too intense. And it doesn't really apply to them, but we can give them ideas on what to do. There's a lot of startup videos out there on the YouTube on that. So that's not a good fit. Somebody that's not really coachable, they know all the answers, that's not a good fit. But a business that they're hungry, they're coachable, and they have a desire to 10x where they are. That's I like people that are bold and they think, well, gosh, I don't even feel worthy of being 10x where I am. And so I've 10x in my business, and I've got a 10x and a 100x plan already in motion in my business. So we practice what we preach. So those are the best. If you're hungry and you're coachable and you have a real business, and you may have nailed down most aspects of it, but there's some aspect that's not. We're a business growth company, and so we focus on the squeakiest wheel. Once we get that fixed, it's a lot like Eli Goldratt said. The constraint moves to somewhere else,
Ah,
and
perfect. Gold rat
yeah,
references are always appropriate. I was about to say that
yeah.
you would do well to study gold rat. Too late. I
Oh
should have
gosh, I
already
loved
guessed
it.
that
But
you were a
yeah,
student of the
yeah,
goal.
yeah. He is amazing. An Israeli physicist that has done more to help manufacturing companies, and so.
I
But yeah,
love that you know
those are
all
the best.
about him too. This is
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
You're my deep best friend, Tim. I'm not letting you go. That's it. We're staying on the line
yeah.
forever.
That's good.
Oh, this is
Yeah, I
great.
hope we can stay together. Yep, we'll connect
Uh,
again for sure.
This is cool. Yeah. So Tim, I definitely. It sounds like folks. I know people need this. And so if
Yeah,
people do, of course, I'll have links to make sure that they
yeah.
they they do reach out. It's been a real pleasure to spend time with you today. And if I can do anything for you, definitely. You always got a
Thank you.
place here where I can share if you've got stuff coming
Yeah,
out, but just for any old reason, I would love.
yeah.
We're
That's
definitely going
great.
to stay connected. And
I hope
whereabouts are you
so.
located, if you don't mind me asking, Tim?
I'm actually geologists have figured this to be the center of the earth. It's Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Nice.
So that was not a qualified geologist that told me that. I think I just made that up in my mind, but Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we serve people all over the country, and most of them are out of state. Most of them live in the state of confusion. No, I didn't say that. Um, I'm I'm not super serious most of the time, but we do serious work though. So
There's a magic to the mobility of, the human. And also in the last couple of years, I imagine it's a fundamental change in your business. Did you find a real sort of restructuring of how you approach things because of the lack of like ease of getting in person with people?
yeah, we most of our business is already built for the pandemic, and I vehemently disagreed with what essential businesses are, what unessential businesses are. I thought that was a crock. Anybody that has a customer that wants to buy from you makes your business essential, and
Right.
I feel very deeply about that. And some of the small guys that were the safest were the most harshly treated in this process. And so I we grew during the pandemic. We definitely lost some clients because they were shut down, and but we're able to help a lot more people than I anticipated. And so it's perfect for this kind of thing. And people get more and more comfortable talking about serious matters over a Zoom call or over a telephone call, or however,
Yeah.
things are held very, very privately and very confidentially. But yeah, so it's been a good time, and I think we kind of stumbled into that too. So I'm
I
very
think
grateful.
We all just got a PhD from the adversity university for the last couple of years,
Geez.
and
Oh man.
I hope that we I hope that people recognize the lessons. I think that's the most important thing. There's nothing worse than having someone, you know, go
Right.
through an experience and then just come out of it thinking, I hope that doesn't happen again, and
Yeah.
not taking any like, because even the hardest things have good lessons in them. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
it's something that we as humans, unfortunately, we're very good at kind of like, oh, if I just pretend that it didn't happen, it won't happen again. Like, no,
Uh,
no, no. And I
yeah.
look, it's a human instinct thing. I know I face it all the time myself. I mentor people and I struggle with my own day to day shit. Like, I can help somebody else grow their business, and I'm like still just grinding out day after day, doing my thing,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
enjoy it. And so
Oh
I
yeah.
lesson is worth it for me to, it is getting better, and I'm actually learning more and applying my own
Right.
lessons to
Right.
myself. But in the meantime, I always say the thing when people ask me, many years from now, and they say, "What's the greatest thing you've accomplished?" I'll say it's that I helped somebody else accomplish the greatest thing in their life.
Wow. I love that. That
And
is
I
awesome.
so
That
I
is
think that's where we
really
should
good.
all be.
Yep. Very, very good. Excellent word.
Well, we're going to discover this stuff together. So thank you
Very
very
good.
much for spending the time. Tim Redmond, Redmond Growth. And of course, folks, they can go, you can email to tim@redmondgrowth.com. We'll have links to the website, and there's lots of great stuff. Just watching you speak, Tim, like I said, I was already excited just watching you on video, and
Yeah.
you made the rest of my day better. I already know in advance. So thank you for spending this time today.
Very
It's a
good.
real
Thank
blessing.
you. Thank you for having me. Yep. Very good. All right. This is Tim Redmond. I'm the CEO of Redmond Growth Consulting. We consult all kinds of businesses. I also buy businesses. And I'm so pleased to be part of this DiscoPosse. Shit.
That's
I
I know it's easy for me to say because I have to say it a lot. It's a mouthful for everybody else. It's all good.
DiscoPosse?
Yeah, it's a long story.
Okay. All right. Okay. Are we live? Is all
No,
that still
luckily,
on?
yeah, I almost wanna I'm gonna have to keep that one and pat it on the back for the blooper reel.
Okay. Let me try that again. I'll be shorter. Okay.